I'm now joined by Nurudeen Muhammed, Nigeria's former Minister of State for Foreign Affairs. Good to have you on Newsnight tonight.
Thank you, Ngozi, for having me.
I'm sure you listened to our international correspondent there,
yeah.
Giving us a blow-by-blow account of events as they've unfolded today at UNGA 80. Let's zero in on Nigeria's position. I wonder how you react to the Vice President saying Nigeria must. He uses that word must. Have a seat at the UN Security Council, a permanent seat, not just any ordinary seat. Your thoughts on this, persistent, consistent call, not just by Nigeria, but other African countries? We heard from William Ruto, Kenya's William Ruto. We've heard from John Mahama of Ghana, towing the same line.
Thank you very much. And I have listened to the Vice President as well, and quite strong and powerful presentation. Passionate appeal, almost emotional at some point, echoing Nigeria's participation and presence at the global stage, which obviously are Nigeria's qualifications. But at the same breath, we're also asking for debt relief.
Yes.
So international politics is a bit tricky, I suppose. First, we have to look at the history. I mean, we discussed this last year when similar speech was delivered by President Bola Tinubu himself. And then, of course, this year, and a lot of things have changed. First, we have the Trump presidency coming on the back of the history of the United Nations itself. The United Nations Security Council is a club of the victors.
Of the World War II.
Exactly. So it were the allied powers, as it were, who came together and put the United Nations Security Council together. So it's actually a lot of power play. It started from military power.
Right.
And then now it's been played around with a lot of other powers on top. The military power is still there, and then other components, economic power, other soft powers. And I would say over the decades, the 80 years of the United Nations Security Council and about 60 years of our independence, I would say there is a progressive, unfortunately, weakening of our position on the international stage, militarily, economically, and perhaps in other spheres.
And even human rights.
Even human rights.
Because it's one of the...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a bit of contradiction sometimes, You have to project pause, you have to project power, but asking for United Nations Security Council permanent seat in one breath and asking for debt forgiveness on another breath, you are sending double signals.
Right.
You are right there putting your vulnerability out there. Perhaps one of the biggest reasons why you are not there. So I would say it was the redrawing of the global order, with the Trump presidency, the United Nations itself struggling, to
40% of its funding.
Exactly.
Withdrawn.
So it's a bit problematic.
But let's stay with Nigeria. Wanting at least 2 seats on the Security Council for a country that, right now, Nigeria in the last 3 years does not have ambassadors in all our 109 diplomatic posts. We don't have that, and to qualify to be on the Security Council, at least one major, criterion is you must have at least 185, ambassadors, commissioners in 185 countries. Let's even begin there. If indeed the United Nations were to begin to look seriously at our request, who will push that agenda? How do we push that agenda on the, on the global front?
So exactly.
Without ambassadors, without high commissioners.
How we started, I said it's essentially backed by military powers,
right,
and then economic influence, and then I said other powers perhaps,
right,
and of course these are some of those soft powers. Yeah, exactly. For a country like Nigeria, was that impressive statistics the Vice President reeled out eloquently, in fact, to not have diplomatic representation, for almost 2 years, and the world is taking note, these little things, how the sub-region is falling apart, how our immediate neighbor to the south, to the north rather, Niger, how Niger is throwing stones into Nigeria, how ECOWAS is balkanized now. There is a coup bloc within ECOWAS that have divided ECOWAS into two. So all these signs of progressive weakening, of our case. Most of our position, if I would say, are mostly historical.
Right.
We have done this, we have done this, we have done this. And,
taking part in 51 out of 60 UN operations.
Quite impressive, but
ECOMOG and all the rest of them.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we have not been able to convert that into present reality. And of course, as you have said, other African countries are also pushing, Kenya pushed very powerful. So, in summary, it's not an emotional appeal. These are facts.
It takes a lot more.
It takes a lot more. First, power is not given, it's taken. So, Security Council is a game of power, both military and economic, and of course, other forms of soft powers. And I would say we're at our most vulnerable moment now, unfortunately.
Truly unfortunate. Let's stay with the other points that you made, that, we're speaking from both sides of the mouth. On the one hand, we're saying we want to belong to the strongest, the most powerful unit in the UN, being the Security Council. And on the other hand, we're saying, we're asking for debt forgiveness, or at best, a restructuring of global, finance architecture. Interesting way of putting it. Well, you heard from William Ruto again of Kenya saying Africa is done borrowing. Compare that with the statement that our Vice President made at Onga. And this call, is it even justified? Should Nigeria be asking for debt forgiveness again after the one we had under Obasanjo in early 2000s, 2003, 2005?
Yeah, it's a bit problematic, actually. After the debt relief of 2003, 2005, that some of these debts have reaccumulated, and we are back on the international stage, cap in hand, asking for more debt relief. And then, of course, here is Ruto, saying that Africa is done borrowing. Yeah. But as we just said earlier, all these are rhetorics. There are people taking notes, and the facts do not reflect what we like to say on global stages. Number one, Africa is not done borrowing.
Far from it.
Far from it.
Okay.
And of course, Nigeria, one of the biggest economies in the continent, and perhaps the most populous country, is there begging, cap in hand, that we need debt relief. So we should be a little bit careful how we present ourselves at the global stage. There are factual issues, there are obvious contradictions that we should try to avoid while making our cases. And this brings us back to the reality, which is foreign policy is essentially a reflection of your domestic policy. And I don't think we're in good shape to mount the podium. And
what will it take for us to be in good shape? For Nigeria to be in good shape?
Well, I would still take you back. I said the United Nations Security Council is the club of the victors. First is the military power. Everyone is aware about.
So before our military power,
the internal security situation in Nigeria. Military is deployed in virtually all the states of the federation.
Putting out so many fires.
Yeah, these countries have intelligence arms inside our country. They know the facts going on, the state of our military. They know the state of our economy. They know the state of our human rights. So I think I would advise it's high time for Nigeria to look inwards and try to fix some of these gaping vulnerabilities. They're actually gaping. Some of it, we said it ourselves on the floor that we need debt relief. That's a serious economic vulnerability. You are technically a beggar, kind of, and that doesn't portray well.
Doesn't.
The vice president
It doesn't help
the
case.
It doesn't help our case.
Ghana's John Mahama, revisited the issue of reparation for the forced enslavement of over 12 million Africans. Did you listen to his speech?
I listened.
What do you make of that point?
Yeah,
talking about that before we wrap.
Yeah, I see reparations differently, actually. Right. Mahama was alluding to reparations to African countries. I would rather say it more for the enslaved people, you know, our sisters and brothers in the Caribbean and the Americas, who were the direct victims of slavery, and who are still struggling with the legacies of the slavery, much more than the motherland, Africa. If you go to the United States, the statistics are there. How many percent is black, and how many percent of black is represented in the prison population, the proportion of the family wealth compared between the blacks and whites, you know, proportion of families, which one is manned by father and mother as a unit, which one is a single mother family. So it's obvious that the victims of the slavery
are the ones who need reparations.
Are the ones who need reparations, not the entire African continent, which is almost historical.
Okay, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much. Nurudeen Muhammed, former Minister of State for Foreign Affairs. Thank you for joining us on Newsnight.